Hey guys, how are we all doing today?
Doing great.
All right.
Well, let me ask you guys. I know you have businesses that you work with, and if they're anything like all the businesses that we work with, I know they're worried about data breaches. Everybody's worried about a data breach, and if you're not, get your head out of the sand. You need to be concerned about data breaches. And so I know that many organizations that are concerned about them. I know organizations that have been hit with data breaches. Um, But here's the thing. The problem is that all these people are worried about it. All these people that have been actually hit by a data breach, organization of all sizes are vulnerable, but many of them are still only doing the basics, if that, right? And it's really sad because it really doesn't take much more to take it to the next level. So let me ask the organization, the business owners and the IT directors and leaders and so on and so forth, if you're protecting yourself, what are you protecting yourself with? Maybe next generation antivirus, multi-factor authentication, force tunnel VPN, MDRs, things of that nature, or conditional access. Those are great, right? But those are really inherently flawed in and of themselves. And if you don't know how, I'm going to tell you, each of them still gives too much access to too many people without enough validation that they're really the people that they say they are. And so you're probably sitting there thinking, hey, we only had antivirus and a firewall and spam protection before, and now we're doing all those things. Are you telling me there's something else? What else is there that we can do? Well, if you haven't heard of it, there's something called zero trust. Zero trust architecture. And if you have heard of it, great. We're going to talk about it today. If you hadn't heard about it, it's really smart, really, really cool. Really, it's not a technology per se, as it is a mindset and a practice, a strategy, if you will. And so we're going to dig deep into zero trust architecture today. But before we get started, I am Jim Gaston. This is the Reboot. Welcome to the Reboot. And so we're here to help you in your business make important decisions that you just maybe don't know, maybe you've made before, and reevaluate them in the areas of technology, cybersecurity, marketing, HR, sales, so on, finance, so on and so forth. We're all business owners here, and we deal with a bunch of business owners. So there's a lot of disciplines we've all had experience and exposure to, and we're here to help you. So joining me today, I've got this guy right here.
Brian Bracci with B&L PC Solutions on Long Island in New York.
And I'm Dave Groot with WinStar Technologies, and we're in Virginia.
I'm David Luft with LDD Consulting out of Albuquerque, New Mexico.
And I'm Vinny Del Val with SpliceNet Consulting here in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Hey, guys. Thanks a lot. And again, I'm Jim Gass with SpliceNet Consulting here in Cincinnati, too. So zero trust, guys. Who wants to start? Maybe just kind of give the high level of it today. And I got a feeling, everybody, that this is going to be the Dave Groot show today.
Well, I mean, does that mean you want me to start?
Yeah.
I volunteer.
Okay.
I volunteer, Dave.
I can go to the high level if you want. You can dive into the weeds.
I mean, so David, you're welcome to jump in here, but guys, I mean, zero trust is very simply put, it is assume breach, right? So, cybersecurity framework talks about protect, detect, and respond. Those are the things the industry has been doing traditionally, right? We protect everything the best we can. We detect when a problem occurs, and then we respond and remediate and recover. Those things are okay, but as you can see, that's not been really effective. We're still getting ransomware attacks every day. We're still having colonial pipelines. We're having supply chain problems. And so zero trust is kind of a new concept that has been, kind of coined by Gartner in 2019. It uses a technology, or part of it is a technology based on SASE, or secure access.
Something else.
Service edge, secure access service edge. Just another fancy acronym for this new technology. And so basically what it comes down to, in the very simplest of ways, if I can, to give you an analogy, you have the traditional tools. The traditional tools versus zero trust is like this. I'm in a bar, or I have a bar, and I have a bouncer, and that bouncer is standing at the front door. they can trust nobody and card everyone and make sure that they're the people we invited and asked to come to the party before they come in the door. Or the traditional tools, let them all in, and then they try and figure out who's bad.
But I think even to add on to that, because what I was thinking through was you got that bar, but what if somebody sneaks in the back door because there's an opening there, or somebody, an employee lets them in? I think Zero Trust takes and puts a big metal bucket over the whole bar. There's only one place to get in, so you can't even get in.
Yeah, but on that concept, David, with Zero Trust, if they come in the back, we still do not trust them. We are automatically assuming they are a bad guy, an uninvited guest, right?
Yeah.
If they happen to come in that door. That's what that whole Zero Trust concept is.
If I can summarize it in like 2 sentences that combine both your comments, it would be trust nothing or no one, and secure everything, right? Those are the 2 big pieces, I would say, that covers the Zero Trust side.
I'll summarize it in 2 words, as I did in the very beginning. Assume breach.
I
End
can
of
name
conversation.
that tune in one note.
We assume that our network is compromised. We assume that our network is full of threats, and we don't trust anything on it.
And
We've
so
been breached.
Let's dig. Now, the concept of this isn't all brand new.
No.
I mean, the concept of least privileged access is old. I mean, from way, way, way back. So can you tie it into things of this nature, very specific? Okay, who has access to files? Let's start with identity. Let's start with identity. Go with identity.
Okay, so you want to talk about that, Vinny, or you want me to?
No, I was just going to add, we think about it from a people perspective, right? But it's also a technology perspective. So your systems that are in place, your software and your applications that are in place, everything is suspect to this concept of, hey, we want to assume that, like you said, Dave, assume that it's buggy, assume that it's broken or breached.
Yeah, I mean, so like the problem, like, look, traditional tools still very important, right? Security is about layering. It's about, filling in gaps and then overlapping and making sure that one system has redundancy with another system that's entirely different, so that if one gets broken, another one, that's what it's all about, the layers. But like an application that I, as a user, launch on my machine, Microsoft Word, Microsoft Outlook, has the same access as I do. And in some cases, it has more access than I do, because if it's got the system, the Microsoft Windows system account behind it, it has administrator access to all kinds of things. So when I run a program, that program can do anything I can do. It can see anything I can see, and it can get to anywhere I can go. Well, if we implement Zero Trust, now I'm saying that program has no business being anywhere. I don't know who you are, and I don't know what you're doing here. What do you need? If you've got a legitimate reason, we can make sure that happens.
Let me ask you if this is analogous to what you just said. Okay, I've got my iPhone, right? And iPhones used to be, I don't know if they are so much anymore, used to be very compartmentalized. Applications, remember the early days of the iPhone and apps on phones? The apps could not communicate with other apps.
Mm-hmm.
And so unless you gave inherent permission. So it came in, boom, lockdown. It is not allowed to do anything except for what I let it do. Is that analogous, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, that's what the terms we've used in the past are sandbox or air gap, right? So we're basically taking systems and we're making them not accessible to other systems. Well, problem is in business, those systems usually need to be attached, right, to a network, to an internet connection, because we do business and we need to pull in data and go places, right? So, you can't just say, well, look, just shut down the internet. Now you're safe. That's true, but you're out of the game. So, yeah, I mean, that is exactly what that is. The sandboxing, the holding it in a separate memory space, and then only allowing it to interact with, in the case of software, it's, you're talking about interacting with the CPU, but I'm talking about, if I'm sitting on my computer and a printer tries to execute a PowerShell command against my machine, tell me when that's normal and why that would be wanting to happen. But if it's, if it's in the right situation, it's on my local land, it's assumed to be trusted. It's in the building. I've got it on the network. It's an endpoint. Traditionally, we're not worrying about that. Hackers are gaining access to one endpoint on your network, and then they're using the built-in tools in the Windows operating system to live off the land, right? They're using command prompt. They're using PowerShell. They're using the applications that are built into Windows for the purpose of managing Windows. What antivirus program says that that's a bad thing? It doesn't, because that's what it was built to do and it's designed to do.
Right.
So we have to reverse some of those things, right? We have to start thinking backwards. And yeah, it seems a little counterproductive, but look at, like, zero trust is like this. If you guys are, people who understand, if you're an IT professional, or if you're dealing with firewalls and you're dealing with outbound firewall rules or inbound firewall rules, zero trust is the deny-all rule of everything that has to do with access to any device on your network, in or out, unless you make a specific exception. End of conversation. That's what it is.
Yeah. It's people know the term need to know, right?
Yeah, that's exactly
they know that
right.
term. Very similarly, with this concept of this of securing your network, you only get it if you need it to do your job.
Right.
You only get it if that system needs to talk to that system.
Right.
Right. That's that whole
and for how long, maybe,
privilege.
right? For how long? Maybe it's not a permanent thing, and these things do need. It's not a set it and forget it. You may need to go and revisit and put some, expirations on policies or something.
Right.
And we see people, even our clients. I mean, you can probably walk into anybody on this street that I'm on and plug into their network and get an IP address on their network, and they're not locking that down, and that's like kind of step one. We're working out with Fortinet on their NAC product, and along the same lines here. I mean, you plug into that network, it doesn't know who you are, and you get isolated. You're on an isolation network until you get their agent on there, and then from there you can gain access. But I think that those are things that people don't think about. They don't know enough to think about that. I mean, they wire everything up and they just, here's a live jack, plug it in, work.
So let me rewind us. I think we really have given a good grasp or a good understanding for everyone, essentially what zero trust does. First question I have: if I implement zero trust, does that mean we're going to lose productivity as an organization? Tell me about how much productivity do we lose?
Well, I would say anytime you implement security, things are going to be a little bit more complicated, but the end result is that you won't lose a week's worth of work when you get encrypted. So you're going to give up a little bit every now and again when people go to try to install an application. They may have to get that application approved. That could take 30 seconds to 5 minutes, depending on who you're working with. And once that's approved, then you're moving forward again. But most of the applications, like Windows updates and Microsoft Office, are pre-approved through the vendors, and so those don't impact it at all. But I think it's just like a seatbelt. You go to put a seatbelt on, it takes a couple extra seconds to put a seatbelt on, but is it worth it?
Right.
Okay. Yep.
I think the bringing about of zero trust, in my mind, is actually, can it slow down productivity, Jim? I mean, it's not designed to do that. And if it's implemented properly, I would think past the initial phase of, setting it up and getting it going, it should not be a prohibitive factor for business. It has to require thought. It has to require processes and policies, which is where we fall as businesses in general when it comes to security, and most often even more so compliance, right? So here's what we got. We got a bunch of rules, and then you got a bunch of people not following rules. And then you get a breach. Now we've got a technology and a theory, right? A working model that's going to force whatever the policies and procedures of the company are to be enforced by default, naturally. And it stops the ability for the person to step outside of that process. And so can it be prohibited if it's not implemented properly, if people aren't trained? Sure. Anything can. I can install a new email client on your desktop and slow business down if I don't do it right. Okay. But the bottom line is, if you get breached and you have good IT, good backups, and you got everything going right for you, average time to recovery, 16.2 days. Okay. So you tell me, can you handle 16 days of your business being shut down? And that's best case scenario. If you don't have backups, you may never come back. Your business may be gone. And
I don't know what the
that's
number is, but
not,
a lot of they won't come back. A lot of
it's
businesses.
not smoke. I'm telling you now, your world can change in 10 minutes if you don't do the right things.
So it's almost like you can't afford not to, is what you're saying.
You know, look, it's easy to sit here and say throw money at security and anything else in the world that we want to fix as a problem, right? If you got enough money, you can fix any problem you got. But that's not how you fix the problem, right? It's a series of things. It doesn't have to be just keep throwing money, but it has to be a culture. It has to be a company. Like, we as a nation, we are, guys, I mean, like, look, we're being attacked. I go out and I do seminars, and I start my seminar with saying we are at war. Our borders have been breached and we are all under attack. Not one of us is exempt from being a target. I don't care who you are, what you do, and what you got. Okay? These hackers, they don't play by morals. They don't play by rules. They don't take days off. This economy is the ninth largest economy in the world. Hacking. Okay? These people, they've got systems and companies and offices, and these aren't kids sitting in a basement with a hoodie on. I'm telling you, these are people who are setting out to either capitalize on the money that you have. Look, you got a business, I'll bet you any amount of money you got $100,000 somewhere sitting around that you would easily give to somebody to save your business, right? Like, if it was a matter of you don't do this, tomorrow you're out of business, you're stroking a check. Do you want to stroke a check for $100,000 to some asshole who's going to try and destroy your way of life? And excuse my language, but I'm sorry. Excuse me. That can be avoided.
So
this is how you do that.
We're gonna take a break for a commercial message while you check your blood pressure.
No, I believe this, guys. I know I sound overly passionate. I'm just telling you, man, it's real.
We all are. We love it.
I got you.
But bring us back on topic. The question I would have, and probably somebody sitting here, right, is this okay? This great idea about zero trust. This great idea.
Yep.
It's the panacea. Well, it's not the absolute panacea. There is no panacea, right? There is no perfect scenario. Give us some places where we can start. Where have you started customers? Where have you guys seen businesses start? We can talk about specific tools. Specific tools is fine. I don't mind that at all. Give us a starting place. Give us a starting place.
Brian can talk to you about application whitelisting. I'm guaranteeing you that.
I think you were just nominated, Brian. Yeah. Totem path, Brian.
Yeah. So we partnered with, I think you guys have too, with ThreatLocker. That's basically it's a zero trust product. And simply the way that works is you install it on your client's endpoints, and it does a baseline inventory of applications and what's running on it. And there's some predefined policies in there that it knows what's allowed and what's not allowed. You let that run for 2, 3, 4 days, whatever, and then you go live. And basically anything that falls outside of what's defined as allowed is not allowed. Now, the nice thing about this is administrator access, all that permissions doesn't matter. So if you're an administrator, you want to install this program on here, and it's not approved by ThreatLocker, it's not getting on there. So for us, it's been great. There's challenges with that, like David Luff was saying, along with anything else. But you need to. We're still working through it. There's if everything was signed by the vendor, it would be a lot easier to manage, I think. And that's what we've run into, is that there's these products out there that are not signed. So that's
stop. Hold on. My job is to clarify things. I know what signed is, but really fast. What does it mean by a signed application?
I don't know the specifics of that. I don't know where that, David, I don't know if you want to.
Sure. When you develop code and you compile that code, you can attach a secure certificate, an SSL certificate that then tells the other side when they install it that nothing's been modified from the time it was compiled to the time that it was in, and it's a trusted, real company that made that software package. Or at least it's got a signed certificate, assuming that that was, from a legitimate company and all
And
that
those
stuff.
certificates can be traced to a root certificate server that
Yes.
everyone trusts.
Just like your banking and such like.
Like
Yeah.
a Veritime.
Yep.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, I got it. Anybody else want to just add anything else to that?
Well, the only other thing I'll add to that is that one of the nicest things that Threat Locker does too is it takes care of that application permission stuff, right? They call it in their terms is ring fencing.
Yep.
But the bottom line is like, their example is like, when is it that Word needs to execute a PowerShell command?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if I open up a Word document, it's infected, and it starts to try and launch a payload using PowerShell, ring fences, Threat Locker's ring fencing is going to say, whoa, Word's allowed. That's an authorized app, but we didn't say it was okay for Word to do this. And so we're just going to stop that part unless you tell us it's okay and you let it happen.
And it all happens in the background, and
that's right.
The end user is never aware, right?
That's
and
right.
So,
and the way they get that is they might get a Word document in an email that looks like, oh, look, Jim sent me a Word document from Jim at AOLrules.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then a user doesn't know, so they just open it up thinking, oh, I've been waiting for this document from Jim, and boom, it hits PowerShell and day's over.
Right.
Game over. Yeah.
No doubt. Rather,
So it's not the documents that your employees are typically creating and using. It's the threats.
Yeah, right.
The bar
that's
that
what
invited.
Well, and that's what Word is for, right? Is for making documents, right? So those are the functions that, like you say, Jim, is that going to slow down productivity? No, we're letting Word do Word. It prints, it makes a document, you can format the font, you can make your paragraphs, you do whatever it is you need to do. You want to merge, great, that's not a problem. Excel's an approved app. Hey, we'll pull up your, okay, it's all fine. Wait a minute, you want to go out to this malicious website and grab something? Why? I don't understand.
So then that's great. That's an endpoint protection. Okay.
Yes.
And a zero trust strategy, there's a lot more than just the endpoints. As a matter of fact, with Microsoft, there's like seven applications, identity, endpoint, so on and so forth. Right. So let's talk about an endpoint. I'm sorry, not an endpoint. That's an endpoint strategy. Let's talk about an identity strategy for zero trust. Anybody want to give me an example of an identity strategy? I mean, we know multi-factor authentication and conditional access. What's that next level of that?
I mean, again, it's the least privilege, right? Brian, again, I don't mean to keep going back, but Threat Locker covers quite a lot of these basics, right? Like the admin privilege, the ability to elevate permission to run a program that is written poorly and requires administrator privileges to run.
Right.
We have to then either give the user that admin privilege, which means they can do anything they want on their machine, or we have to type a password in every time they want to run it. Well, that's identity, related, and Threat Locker can handle that elevation for you if you give it pre permission ahead of time, right? So a user can still be low privilege, least privilege, right? Need to know, as Vinny said. It's, if you don't need this for your job role, then why do you have it? It's just that simple. And then go ahead.
I think part of it is also on the process side, right? And there are certainly tools that can help with this. But for example, one of the things Brian mentioned is I needed access to this file, but I no longer need it, right?
Right.
What's your audit process for that, right? How are you confirming that folks that have access to that shared drive still need it because that they've moved roles and now they don't need it anymore, right? All these different things need to be considered. You have to have processes in place, and even better yet, you should have tools in place to help you to manage all those things, because trying to do it manually is a big, big task. But those are the types of things you want to think of when you talk about authentication and identity. What are you accessing? What is the user accessing, and things like that. It could be an application, it could be a file share, it could be anything, right? Right. You have to have the processes in place and somebody to take care of those.
Yeah, I think a big thing too, though, is we're guilty of it, but is unattended access to resources, to endpoints, right? I mean, we couldn't do our jobs without hopping on the computer in real time. We're protected on our end, but again, it's just that I know clients that will put third-party application on their computer and access it from their home laptop, and that's not vetted. That's not now you've kind of circumvented the system a little bit because you have a different layer of risk now. It's not coming through us;
Right.
it's coming through now a device that we know nothing about.
Would you guys? So when we start talking about implementing this, would you guys consider multi-factor authentication on the desktop a zero trust element?
No.
Why?
Well, because multi-factor on the desktop.
By the way, this helps because we understand what zero trust is not. Also,
Well, so zero trust and multi-factor are not synonymous. First off, multi-factor is just simply asking a second question. It's not necessarily saying I don't trust you. It's authenticating. I'm sorry, it's getting ready to rain here, so I'm moving to a different location. Apologize.
No, everyone, David Groot is sitting outside in Washington, D.C., by the way.
I'm almost to a new table. Apologies.
No, that's okay, David. We get old Dave. Our audience don't mind.
I'm sorry, guys. It's just part of the nature of the business we're in, right?
That's right.
We're all over the place.
It's a real show. We're not scripted studio. We're real.
Yeah. Hey, listen, there's nothing fake going on here. This is, wide open and transparent. What was the question? I'm sorry. What were we talking about? I got sidetracked.
Multi-factor authentication. Is it zero trust? Why isn't it not zero trust?
Well, multi-factor just authenticates who you are, but it doesn't allow. I mean, it allows you access to anything, and it's possible if somebody could hack your, whatever application is, that they could still have access, but it doesn't stop access to things.
So yeah, multi-factor is certainly not a guarantee. It can be bypassed, right? Like that, it's not perfect. Multi-factor, I mean, you can hack that.
Wasn't it 6 months ago Microsoft had a known flaw in their MFA?
I know that there's a lot of problems with the texting part of it. I know that.
Right.
But.
Well, so let's take multi-factor for a second, right?
Okay.
The idea that there's a username, a password, and then a changing token, right? Wherever that token comes from, whether you get it on a text message, whether you get it on a fob, whether you get it on a smartphone app, so on and so forth, right? Those are hackable. So how do you apply zero trust to multi-factor? Do you say, okay, well, this person's generally in this region? Do you say this person's got a certificate also? Do you say this person's got a thumbprint? Does that apply? Zero trust?
I mean, there are a lot of ways that can be accomplished. Vinny, did you want to say something? Because I'm not trying to.
Yeah, I was going to say multi-factor can be part of the equation for zero trust, but it is not the only solution for zero trust, right? Because, for example, from an authentication perspective, right? Well, you have your password, but I'd still want to make sure it's you because I want this code, right? So it's being used as a second form. So I think often it will be used as part of the equation, but it's not limiting access, right? It's still, once you get that past that code, you have access to whatever you've been given access to. And most of the time that's wide open, right? And so, when I say it's part of the equation, it's because on the authentication side, you're double checking that access, right? So I think from that perspective, it can be part of the equation, but I would never say that, whoa, good, I got multi-factor, I'm covered, right? There's a long way to go after that.
Right. I agree with that, but I think, as with everything in security, layering is the key, right? So when we're talking about zero trust and we're talking about MFA, other ways to add on top of that to further enhance it, things like conditional access, meaning you have to be coming from a certain IP address or a certain internet connection or a certain state or country. Then you can have that in addition to your MFA and your username and your password, right?
Or if you're trying to sign in from two really remote places in the very close proximity of time frame,
Well, I had a conversation maybe 2 months ago it wasn't a client, it was one of their contacts. They had a breach, and a pretty significant breach. And in conversation with them and some forensic people, it came out that one of the guys there was getting pinged on his phone for authentication, and he kept approving it. It wasn't him. so that's where MFA is not.
There's a big flaw right there.
Absolutely.
There's a huge flaw right there.
Approve. He's like, yeah, it was getting annoying. I just kept approving it. It's like, oh, well, that's not good.
Wow.
So there is some belief or mindset or, in the multi-factor, vein that the best or better approach for that is to use like a YubiKey or an actual device, right? Not a one-time code or not. Yeah. Well, no, that's a one-time passcode though, right? That's
right. Yes, it is. You're right.
I'm saying like
the type he's talking about is it's not a prompt at least.
No. It's not a prompt. You push in the device. Like a YubiKey is just like a USB drive or whatever, and you just plug it in. So that it just adds that. Now it's not an SMS, right? I can hack a mobile phone. I can clone a SIM card. So now I'm the hacker with your mobile phone and I'm getting your MS code and I'm approving it. Or better yet, you can approve it for me if you're like what Vinny was saying, the guy or Brian, I guess. So, a lot of different ways, but that one at least still needs to be in your hand, physically and can it be cloned or hacked? I suppose it probably could be if they got a hold of that device for a certain period of time. I do not know that to be a fact, but I don't think there's anything in the world that's not hackable if it's electronic, right?
Well, let's end on this. I mean, we're already over a little bit, and I want to make sure that, I cover one thing, right? We talk about zero trust. Look, there's incredible resources out there for zero trust. There's different organizations that have different ideas of what zero trust are. And so if you have any questions about it, always, no matter what platform that you find us on, post a question. Come back over here to LinkedIn and look for the Reboot, hashtag the Reboot. You'll find any one of our streams and post it there or in our YouTube. Now, Microsoft, I'll post a nice article from Microsoft about their idea and the guiding principles of zero trust. But they break it down into these categories, right? So identity, endpoints, data, apps, infrastructure, and network. And these are some of the things that they think of from a zero trust security perspective.
If I may, those are the places where Microsoft has products that will fit into the zero trust principles. The zero trust principles that they list are verify explicitly, use least privileged access, and assume breach. Those are the principles of zero trust.
Absolutely. Okay. And that's actually what we put in the show today, in the post for the show today. So exactly. Well, listen, we're going to put a few resources out on the web and messages, guys. I ask you all to put some of your resources in chat for people. And want to thank everybody for the great topic, great conversation today. Again, this is the Reboot. We're on every Wednesday now at 2 p.m. Eastern time. We shifted a 30-minute time frame for everyone. So, guys, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. I don't have our topic on hand for next week, but we'll get it out here really soon.
All right. Sorry to take up all your conversation today, guys.
We were leaning on you today. We were leaning on you today, man. We appreciate
the expert.
All right. Take care.
Have fun.